Good morning and welcome to our breakout session on stopping Shapiro's energy tax hikes. In other words, protecting you, the taxpayer. And my name is Stephen Bloom. I'm Vice President at the Commonwealth Foundation. I'm also a former state representative, and during my 8 years that I served in the Pennsylvania State House, I used to very frequently work with the Commonwealth Foundation, especially utilizing what I always called the intellectual ammunition that the Commonwealth Foundation provides for those of us fighting for a more fiscally responsible and responsive government. So just a little bit about what we're going to be talking about this morning. And the main theme I want to get across is that we are hoping that you will leave here not just with a lot of great information today, but also with the tools to do something with that information, to bring to bear pressure on lawmakers, on public officials, and so forth, so that this can actually turn into more than just a listening session, but one in which you leave empowered to make a difference. I'm going to introduce our panelists before we get into some questions that we have for them. Elizabeth Stelle is our Vice President of Policy at the Commonwealth Foundation. Erik Telford is our Senior Vice President of Public Affairs. And Beliveau is our Senior Manager of Energy Policy. So we've got some great minds here on the stage, and some of the smartest people I know, those that I work on the government affairs side, and so it's these folks who equip me to go to the Capitol and advocate with lawmakers, but it's based on the solid research and information and message testing and proven knowledge that this group brings to us. So we've got a lot of great information to share, including some key polling and, again, some message data to help you make an argument that's going to stick when you're trying to personally get involved in stopping Governor Shapiro's attempts to continue increasing taxes on Pennsylvania energy. Your voice is the only thing that matters in making the difference. Like, I could sit up here and all day, a lot of the reps are going to be much more influenced or senators much more influenced if one of their constituents comes to them with these pitches, and that's why we're equipping you. You are literally the lifeblood of policy reform in Pennsylvania, and thank you for that. At this point, I will turn it over to Erik to start in, and Erik, welcome to the panel, and thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you all for being here. I'm also really excited to be on stage with, as Steve said, some of the smartest people he knows. I don't think I'm included in that, but our policy experts here with Liz and Andre are, and with Steve as a former legislator. And while Liz and Andre are going to talk to you about the policies that Josh Shapiro is driving to increase your taxes and make Pennsylvania less affordable, I'm here to tell you what you can do about it. And that really starts with the political reality. And we need to acknowledge Josh Shapiro is a very gifted politician. He presents himself as a moderate, and unfortunately, a lot of people buy that. He's got very high approval and popularity rates. That said, most people do not know the truth and the substance of what he is proposing, and that's what we're here to talk about. It starts by getting informed and then getting involved. My colleagues are going to talk about that today, so I would say start by listening, start by getting informed, and I'm going to talk to you about how you can get engaged. Before I talk to you about a few things that you can do, I want to motivate you. So let's talk about where Josh Shapiro is spending some of your money. As we're here in this ballroom, he's probably getting his day started just across the river, maybe waking up and firing up the $200 coffee maker that he bought with your tax dollars as part of the luxury upgrades to the governor's mansion that he deemed in disrepair when he entered it. That necessitated him on your dime to buy a massage couch, a $900 blender, a $2,500 electronic dog door. Those are part of the $250,000 in luxury upgrades he made to the governor's mansion. That's not even among the most egregious things he's doing. He has a 9-person digital strategy team that is devoted to building his brand and building his digital presence as he has his eye on the calendar for his future political aspirations. He's spending more than $1 million a year of your money to promote himself and his profile. He's not talking about policies. He's riding jet skis. He's giving his commentary on the Barbie movie. He's making funny memes. this is ridiculous stuff that's a total waste and an egregious abuse of taxpayer dollars. And we see this rife throughout government. There are areas he can and should be more prudent. There are promises he made to cut taxes, to improve the economy that he hasn't followed through on. So I just want to make sure you're properly motivated and to know you're in good company. Our polling shows that over 90% of Pennsylvanians want policies like a Taxpayer Protection Act. They're demanding fiscal responsibility, and by holding the governor accountable and motivating our champions in the legislature and holding our opponents in the legislature accountable, those who join Shapiro in wanting to hike your taxes, you can make a really big impact. So again, it starts by getting informed. Listen to my colleagues today. What Liz and Andre are going to tell you is really important information that will help you get involved. How can you get involved? There are a number of ways. And I think some of our other colleagues here are passing out some handouts that you can look at. If you go and get a cup of coffee, make sure you get the coffee sleeve here that will tell you not to get burned by Shapiro's energy taxes. But StopShapiro'sTaxes.com is a website where you can sign up. And we're building an army of advocates. We have 30,000 strong right now across the state. And we need 3 times as many as that to get involved, to get the word out, to contact your elected officials, to call talk radio. I took a walk through the parking lot here and I saw that some of you like bumper stickers. We've got bumper stickers at the booth. Slap one on your car. Make sure people go to StopShapiroTaxes.com so that they can sign up. And we're sending regular updates to contact lawmakers and tell other ways. If you're on social media, how can you use that as a tool to spread the word? How can you call talk radio? How can you write a letter to the editor? So how can each of you leave today and not just be upset or angry about what's going on, but get involved and actually make a difference? From there, how can you be a force multiplier? How can you spread the word to your friends? Again, I mentioned social media and reaching out, things like a bumper sticker, but as you get on our email list, forwarding that email to your friends, your neighbors, your family, making sure we educate them about what's going on, because as our polling shows, a lot of these matters, and Andre's going to talk about energy taxes in particular, the way Josh Shapiro is pursuing this, the names of the policies, Reggie, the way he's pursuing it through court battles, are all very complicated. And our polling shows most Pennsylvanians aren't even aware what's happening, but as soon as they do become informed, they are overwhelmingly opposed to what the governor is doing. More than 2/3 oppose the energy taxes, his abuse of executive power to bypass the legislature and work through the courts. So we know that the people are on our side. There are hundreds of thousands and millions really of you across the state that can join in this fight. And that requires each of us to leave here today and not just be involved ourselves, but to get others involved and bring them to the cause.
Excellent, Erik. Thank you so much, Erik. And I want to kick things over to Andre now to get into some of the substance of what is happening with Governor Shapiro's proposals around energy, and why are we saying there's more and more energy taxes that the governor's pushing?
Yeah, absolutely. So good morning, everyone. My name is Andre, and I live a high carbon lifestyle. And so does everybody here. In fact, I'm sure most of us drove here in a car that is using some form of a fossil fuel. Everything that you have in this room comes from a fossil fuel. And the good news about fossil fuels, particularly in Pennsylvania, is that they are also lowering our emissions, which people don't want to talk about. So Pennsylvania has a great success story. We have an abundance of natural resources, particularly in natural gas and oil. In fact, in the Appalachian Basin, we could power the entire northeastern United States' power grid for well over 100 years, just what's under our feet, the liquid gold in the Appalachian Basin. But Governor Shapiro wants to stop that. And not only does he want to stop that, but Pennsylvanians are already paying electrical bills that are far above the national average. That should not be the case. Because of the abundance of natural resources that we have here, because we're doing it better than other states that are trying to impose the same energy tax that Governor Shapiro is. Governor Shapiro wants to stop success. He wants to actually stop Pennsylvania's proven energy leadership, and let's talk about that. But I think it's important to, how did we get here? Why actually are our electricity bills so high? Because if we sit on this abundance of natural resources, if we are an energy powerhouse, which we are, we're the #1 exporter of electricity in the nation, we're the #2 producer of natural gas in the country, and the shale boom that came out of this region is what powered the United States from a a net importer to a net exporter of oil and gas. So this region is an energy leader in Pennsylvania in particular. But how did we get here? Well, back in the early 2000s, there was a push across the entire country. And it was this push because there was this new technology that was coming onto the scene called wind and solar power. And in order to try to get this up and coming industry, lawmakers across the country at the state level imposed something called a Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS. Here in Pennsylvania, we call it the Alternative Energy Portfolio Standard, or AEPS. That's something that came onto the scene in the early 2000s, and effectively what it did was it mandated a certain percentage of energy that public utilities had to take in from part-time energy sources like wind and solar, or unreliable, the unreliables as I call them. They call them renewables, I call them the unreliables, because they only work when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, and maybe we'll get into some of the technicalities of why they're actually more expensive and why they are so unreliable. But this mandate came about, the AEPS, and over time it expanded, and we're sitting at a place where it's roughly about 8% of what an 18% portfolio looks like, and our current AEPS says that it has to come from energy sources like wind and solar. So that is the beginning of why your energy prices are higher and why they're going to continue to be high while something like the AEPS is on the books. It's essentially, it's moving the market. It's effectively a tax on consumers. And in a lot of cases, you are paying for energy that is not even being supplied to the grid. But public utilities, because of this standard, they're being forced to overbuild on wind and solar, and you're paying for it. So that's really where this starts to begin, where the energy leadership story gets counteracted with taxes. Many of you will remember back in 2019, Governor Wolf decided that, you know what, we're winning too much, we have to stop winning, so let's bring something called RGGI, or the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. So what is that? This is a multi-state compact that exists in states around Pennsylvania, and it's called a cap and trade system. So effectively, it's an energy tax. And what RGGI says, it's a conglomerate, it's itself its own company, and states say, we're going to allow you to regulate our power sector, and you're going to tell them how much carbon they can emit. That's called allowances. And then once they breach that, then you have to pay even more. There's penalty fees if you breach the allotted carbon that you have. And if you don't use it, you can sell it to other people who maybe are needing a little bit more. So it sounds like a market scheme, and many people will say this is a market system, but it's not. It's a carbon tax. And carbon taxes, as I joked about at the beginning, that's a tax on modern life. 80% of the world's power comes from some form of a fossil fuel. In Pennsylvania, well over 60% of our energy grid comes from natural gas. So you're actually punishing the industry that is delivering reliable energy. It's actually helping to lower emissions. And also, this fuel we have the ability to produce it. So it's not an issue of getting the product out of ground. There are regulatory barriers that are preventing us from getting gas to market, which is another thing that is also arbitrarily raising the cost. So RGGI comes on the scene in 2019. Of course, it's a unilateral action by the executive, which the legislature has the power of the purse. They're the only ones who have the purview to levy taxes, not the governor. So it goes to court. The Commonwealth Court rightly decides that this is an unconstitutional action because the legislature is supposed to make the tax, not the governor. And Governor Shapiro campaigned on RGGI skepticism. He was very skeptical about this RGGI tax. So his skepticism turns into him championing this policy. So now Governor Shapiro loves RGGI taxes. They're great, best thing ever. Just ask him, he'll tell you. But what's better than the RGGI tax is if we don't want to do RGGI, then you should pass his plan, which instead of going into a regional conglomerate of taxes is going to just be self-inflicted wounds with his own energy tax called PACER. So RGGI is still alive on the scene. We're actually going to be having a Supreme Court oral argument in May. So we're going to hear the constitutional debates around the RGGI tax. But Shapiro is now really using that as leverage, holding this over legislators' heads to say, look, I'll end this RGGI lawsuit if you pass my own homegrown version of RGGI, which is PACER. PACER is also an energy tax. It's pretty much RGGI 2.0. It's a cap and trade system, same kind of thing. It is a carbon tax on our power emitters that will then trickle down to an energy economy-wide energy tax, which means your already high electricity bills are going to be even higher. And he's calling this his lightning plan. I like to call it the out in the lights plan. This is really what it's going to do. It is going to make energy more expensive. And then not only is he going to make it more expensive with his carbon tax, but then he's put another proposal out called PRESS. And what is PRESS? Well, I talked about at the beginning, the AEPS, this renewable portfolio standard. It's not enough that we're only getting roughly 8 to 18% of renewable part-time energy sources. Governor Shapiro thinks that a full-time economy can run on part-time energy, so he wants to expand that now to 50%. So not only is he want to charge a carbon tax, but he also wants to increase unreliability by adding more unreliable energy sources onto the grid, for adding more subsidies. So all of this is a recipe for disaster. So, and Erik talked about ways we can do to fight this, but that's really, I just wanted a scene set for you about why we already have high electricity costs, what we can do. We can get rid of the AEPS, we can streamline permitting, we can get into, I know Liz will probably get into this a little bit more. There are tons of things that we can do. We have the ability to do it. And Governor Shapiro says doing nothing is not an option. Well, doing the wrong thing is even worse. He claims that we need RGGI and that we need PACER, but the data is just not with him. In fact, Pennsylvania, he says we need to lower carbon emissions. Okay, well, we're doing that in Pennsylvania. We're just doing it a way he doesn't like. We're doing it because we have natural gas. There's been a market transition from coal to natural gas. Natural gas emits less carbon. And our own independent fiscal office says that we've actually reduced carbon, and sufficiently so. In fact, in 2023, we've reduced emissions, the largest drop in emissions since the 1990s. And that's because natural gas. Those are inconvenient truths for Governor Shapiro because he wants to deliver to his green energy donors. But the truth of the matter is we have the natural resources here to do it, to provide reliable power, to provide affordable power if government will get out of the way, and that will also make our air cleaner, our water cleaner, and conserve our natural environment in a responsible way. So really, this is a solution in search of a problem, and we really hope that you will get energized about this. Get energized about energy, and help us stop Shapiro's energy taxes, because they're unnecessary, and we know how to do it, and that's when we get government out of the way and let the market flourish so all of you can have affordable, reliable energy and enjoy the lifestyles that you also desperately do enjoy and want.
Thank you, Andre. And Liz, why don't we get into some of those other factors that Andre alluded to?
Okay, so if there's one thing you remember from this session today, what I want to drill into everyone's memory is that drill in. Yeah,
Drill
see,
in.
do you like that? You caught that.
Whoa.
Good job, Andre.
That was superior to what
Yeah.
Andre did.
Yeah,
that
was great.
That was great. Is that Pennsylvania is a powerhouse right now. We have an incredible opportunity to build on our long and storied history as a supplier, not just to the Eastern Seaboard, as Andre said, but really a major energy supplier to the entire world. We became energy independent in the last 10 years because of Pennsylvania natural gas, and we don't want to go back. So this is a critical turning point for Pennsylvania. I cannot stress that enough. When you think of Pennsylvania, you probably don't think of oil and gas. You think of, I don't know, the Liberty Bell, snack food, I don't know, lots of different things. When you think of Texas, you think, oh, oil, drilling, gas. But again, Pennsylvania is one of the largest producers of natural gas in the country. Andre gave you a couple stats. I just want to build on that. There's even more. Third largest producer of coal, second largest producer of nuclear energy, fifth largest exporter of coal in the entire world. We are an energy powerhouse. And what Governor Shapiro is talking about is completely turning our backs on that long and storied history and all the success that it's brought us and making us energy impoverished. It's a huge change. And I just want to emphasize how big of a turnaround is before us in terms of the debate in Harrisburg. These policies have huge ramifications because the cost of energy factors into the cost of everything. And so when you look at what are you going to experience right now, given the bad policies that do exist, like the AEPS, like the RGGI, that's hanging over the heads of the economy of Pennsylvanians, I think it's important to tell you what's in front of you. You are going to see your electricity rates increase this summer. In June, there's an estimate that residential electricity rates will increase from about 10 to 15% across Pennsylvania because we are not building enough reliable energy in Pennsylvania. We are decommissioning plants faster than we are bringing plants online. Basic economics, you are all going to see a price increase. I'm sorry, that's just the reality. It's baked in. The question is, how much more are your rates going to increase in the future? And that's what we're debating right now. That's why we're asking you to get engaged, because we want that to stop. In fact, we want that to reverse. And multiple industries. I mean, I know Dave was up here earlier. The manufacturers, plastics, so many different industries thrive when they have a place to tap into affordable and reliable energy. That's what really made Pennsylvania great in the first place. And we can continue that legacy if we have the right policies in place. And again, I want to emphasize what Andre said about carbon emissions. We're doing exactly what policymakers want us to do without the additional interference of these new rules and regulations. So let's not get in our own way, shoot ourselves in the foot, because RGGI states actually are doing a worse job of reducing carbon emissions than Pennsylvania without RGGI. Andre gave you some numbers. I'll give you another set of numbers. In Pennsylvania from 2018 to 2023, we saw about a 9 million reduction in tons of carbon. New York, 1 million. New Jersey, 5 million. We're doing it better without government. It's a wonderful, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. We here at Commonwealth Foundation, we love the free market, so this is just, it makes my heart so warm to see that this is working. But that's all in jeopardy through the governor's proposals. So, you know, what is out there to counter these bad ideas? There's a lot of good stuff out there. First, we talk about permitting and regulatory reform. There are a slate of bills that lawmakers are working on to give regulatory relief across the board. Governor Shapiro tends to do these targeted programs, like the fast track program, where you still have to get his permission to experience regulatory relief for your project. There's a new siting board proposal that they're discussing. Again, only certain types of projects are eligible for this form of regulatory relief. What we're advocating for at the Commonwealth Foundation is broad-based regulatory relief no matter your industry. That's what needs to happen. We need a new standard because in Pennsylvania, it is more expensive to do any of these energy projects because of the regulatory burden. A couple years ago, I believe it was the Marcel Show Coalition did a study and they looked at the cost to drill a new natural gas well in Ohio versus Pennsylvania. Literally like miles across the border, you know, not a lot of difference in the geography or any of the other, you know, things that would factor into the equipment and materials. And it was around $1 million more to drill in Pennsylvania just because of the regulatory burden, the time and the cost to get through the whole regulatory scheme. That's a huge disadvantage to our economy, to our people, and it's unnecessary. We can do this safely. We've proven it for the past 2 decades with natural gas. And so the first step is that regulatory reform. There's a RAINS Act bill similar to the federal government. If you have a regulation that's more than $1 million in costs on private businesses in a year, then that gets special consideration. It has to go to the General Assembly and get approved by lawmakers. That's something that if we had had it in place when RGGI came up in 2019, it would not have advanced. The legislature actually tried to reverse that regulation, and they were unable to secure an override veto from the governor. So there is an imbalance right now in terms of your direct lawmakers in their ability to go head to toe with the agencies and with some of the policies that the governor is pursuing through the courts, through regulation. So permitting regulatory reform, that's one thing. The second thing is reliability standards in Pennsylvania. Right now, we do not have those. So what that means is if you have a solar farm, a wind farm, a project that you want to bring online and put into the queue and bring onto the grid, there's no requirements that you need a certain level of reliability. So what you're seeing in other states, like Texas is a good example. People think of Texas as very, conservative, red, but they have a lot of wind. And what they've started to do is essentially build double the infrastructure they need because they need something to back up all the wind when it's not blowing. Battery storage, natural gas, all kinds of things. So essentially, it's incredibly inefficient and it's costing those ratepayers a lot more. And we saw how tragic and literally life devastating it can be when you have an unreliable grid. I don't know if any of you remember the storm of Uri in 2021. Over 200 people lost their lives. People died. People died. So we're not, again, I'm not trying to scare you, but These things really matter. And so it's incredibly important that we're taking reliability seriously. So we are working on proposals right now to craft reliability standards for our Public Utility Commission to consider, because the reason we're having all of these issues in Pennsylvania in terms of cost, pending issues with reliability, is because of bad state policies. It really just comes down to that, bad state policies. So reliability standards is another thing that's really important. There's more least cost generation planning and other things that we can do to make sure that our power remains reliable and affordable. And if you want to read more about that, we have these on our table. This is our energy platform, where we go through the major principles, policy principles of good energy policy. And then in the back section, we actually talk, at an introductory level on what some of the reforms would actually look like in Pennsylvania. And we're actively working right now on turning these reforms into legislation that can be championed by our lawmakers so we can protect Pennsylvanians from those higher costs, from that lack of reliability that can be life-threatening. And I just want to close and then kind of continue the conversation on how important it is that the governor and your lawmakers hear from you. I can't stress that enough. We need your help to make this happen. They hear often from energy producers and other industry association groups, but a normal, everyday constituent reaching out and saying, I'm concerned about rising electricity rates, don't support Reggie, please oppose Pacer and Press, do fight for reliability standards, that has a tremendous impact. So echoing what Erik said, we really need your help because this is a really serious issue and Pennsylvanians are just not aware of how this policy is going to impact on a very personal level their pocketbooks, their reliability, and the economic success for the future of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Liz.
Can I interject one thing, Steve?
Yeah, we'll get back to Erik very shortly, but go ahead.
Yeah, just to build on what Liz is talking about and why actually dealing with state policies and what we're seeing with Governor Shapiro right now is so important. I mean, for the last 4 years, we had disastrous energy policies that came out of the Joe Biden administration. We had the Inflation Reduction Act with these green energy subsidies that flooded energy markets throughout the country, so artificially raising prices across the country. So what they did was they were forcing utilities to have, through subsidies effectively, forcing them to have to build more wind and solar because it was so subsidized, it distorted the way we deal with energy markets. So it made them the most affordable, so it moves them to the top of the queue, which moves the reliables down to the bottom of the queue. So you overbuild on wind and solar, artificially raises costs because you're paying for energy that is not reliably producing power to the grid. So, and the Inflation Reduction Act is still alive, so we really need to be talking to our members of Congress and saying, hey, we need to be full repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act if we're actually serious about lowering costs. But also, why is state policy important right now? Well, because right now we're actually getting very good energy policies out of Washington, D.C. I mean, President Trump, he said drill, baby, drill. He's serious. What we saw in just the last 2 weeks, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, had the largest deregulatory sweep in U.S. history. That is amazing. That's good stuff. And now what's happening at the state level is instead of building on the great policies, which is rare to see good policies coming out of Washington, D.C., but we have it, but instead of building on that and saying, you know what, if we care about American energy dominance, like Pennsylvania is the keystone state, the key to American energy dominance is right here in Pennsylvania. And if we are going to create policies in the state to counteract good federal policies, we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. That's why fighting against Shapiro's energy taxes is so crucial. If we want to take advantage of the good policies that are coming out of Washington right now, the deregulations we're seeing at EPA, hopefully getting rid of the Inflation Reduction Act, allowing us to expand on our natural resources, this is why this is so critical, because state policy, other states they can do what they want. But here in Pennsylvania, it's what we do here matters, and not just for Pennsylvanians, but it matters for the entire region and for the entire country. That's why these state policy battles right now are so critical.
Well said, Andre. And Erik, can you get into now how folks can be
Absolutely.
activated, make a difference?
So hopefully you've learned a lot, and I want to applaud all of you because Andre talked about some federal issues. Most people don't pay attention to politics a lot at all. If they do, they maybe watch the news and they see what's happening in Washington, D.C. Very few people pay attention to what's happening at the state level. Each of you are here because you care. You need to leave and get more people involved. and you need to stay involved yourself. So I want to applaud you for being here and for being engaged where not enough people are, including the governor, who's more focused on national ambitions than what's going on in the state. But you've heard a lot of acronyms. There are a lot of complexities to what's been discussed today. So please stop by our booth. We have literature. Again, go to stopshapirotaxes.com, sign up so that you can become one of our advocates and we can work with you on ways to stay involved, to contact lawmakers, to hold Shapiro accountable, and to spread the word. But I do want to say that if we boil it down from the acronyms, if we try to overcome the messaging wave of the millions of your tax dollars that Governor Shapiro is using to go out and claim that he's working across the aisle and cutting taxes and making energy more affordable, all of which are false. If you want to get the truth out, you just need to make it simple. One, if Josh Shapiro's proposed budget passes, it is going to force a future tax hike on average of $2,000 per family. If Josh Shapiro's energy policy is enacted, it is a 30% tax increase on your electric utility bill. That is the message that people need to know. And it's kind of interesting, we were talking about in our staff meeting yesterday, there's enough natural gas in Pennsylvania to power the nation for 177 years.
The whole basin, the Appalachian Basin.
The whole Appalachian Basin, to power the country for 177 years. Josh Shapiro, most of his largest campaign donors are from out of state. Most of them are from California. He is more Hollywood than Harrisburg. And his donors care more about putting him in power in Washington, D.C. for 4 years than powering the nation for 177 years. We need to make Josh Shapiro focus on the job he has now, not the one he wants in the future. And the best way to do that is to get the truth out. Many people, including national conservative media outlets, praise him as a moderate leader. They believe his rhetoric. When he says he works across the aisle, they think it's true. One of my favorite articles I read the other month was about Josh Shapiro praising himself for working across the aisle. A bunch of Democrats in the legislature saying, Josh Shapiro is so great reaching across the aisle. Then they go to the Republicans for quotes. We don't hear from him. He doesn't work with us. He's launching personal invectives and telling Senate President Kim Ward to stop her extracurricular chirping. He has been actively hostile. He vetoed his own campaign promise to save kids in failing schools and betrayed the deal he made with Senate Republicans. And ever since that first blunder in his very first year in office, he has not made an effort to work across the aisle. That's why he's going to court and suing to raise your taxes, because he will not work with the legislature. They're our firewall. We need to hold up the champions that are standing up to Shapiro and his tax hikes, and we need to get the truth out, because the myth that Josh Shapiro is a moderate is just that, a myth. You probably know it because you're here. Do your neighbors know it? Do the conservatives or Republicans that cast their ballot for Josh Shapiro because they believed what he said he would do, to cut taxes, to work with Republicans, to provide school choice, to advance regulatory reform? A lot of people think he's doing that, and he's doing exactly the opposite. So people need to know the truth. It starts by getting informed. Thank you for being here today. Get involved. Go to stopshapirotaxes.com. Multiply. Make sure you spread the word. Get others involved. And together we'll build an army of advocates that will stop these bad policies, and we'll make sure that people know the truth of what's happening here in Harrisburg.
Here.
Thank you, Erik. I'm going to ask Andre a question, then go ahead.
Yeah.
Andre, one time I had asked you, or you had approached me, we were talking about these concepts, and you talked about how all of the above is not the right answer. And a lot of times conservatives think if we go to talk about the energy situation, we think all of the above, that's the right mantra.
Yeah.
But it's not quite right. Can you just define why that isn't exactly what we're looking for, even though it's in the right ballpark?
Yeah, that's right. So, and you'll hear this actually from elected Republicans throughout the country, although they're starting to stop because the Trump team is not saying all the above anymore. But you'll hear them say, we believe in all of the above energy, and they try to say this to make people who believe in free markets and deregulation to get on board with this. But that actually what saying all the above has been in practice for over a decade now has actually just been a blank check to net zero. And it's been a blank check to subsidies propping up part-time energy sources like wind and solar. It's not actually all of the above because it just distorts the market in all kinds of crazy ways. So what we actually want to push forward is what Secretary of Energy Chris Wright has been saying, what Doug Burgum has been saying at Interior, what President Trump has been saying. We don't need all of the above. We need reliable, affordable, and secure energy. Those are the three things that we need. And it's been fun to watch. I mean, Erik mentioned, Josh Shapiro likes to pretend he's some moderate. Now he's saying he's the all of the above governor. And he's doing this to try to appeal to certain voices and to certain other moderates or maybe people who, conservatives, where that might appeal to that message. So I think once Josh Shapiro picks up the message, I mean, there's no progressive policy that he's not willing to pick up and rebrand for himself. So no, we don't need all of the above. It's a blank check to net zero. We need reliable, affordable, and secure energy policies. We can do that in Pennsylvania, again, if we can get government out of the way and stop Governor Shapiro from his all of the above energy taxes.
Thank you, Andre. And Liz, yes, you had.
Yeah, so I was going to make a point of, I think it was last week, Governor Shapiro said something like, I'm proud that we're a major energy exporter, like kind of saying, like, I'm not ashamed of the reputation we have. Again, the rhetoric doesn't match the actions. So look at what he's doing, not what he's saying. And that's a little more challenging to do. And that's where organizations like Commonwealth Foundation come in, because we can help you show what he's actually doing or the impact that his policies will actually have. And there's one, I think, really key metric that I've been watching that's going to tell us whether we're winning this battle or not. And it goes back to the RGGI regulation that we talked about that's in the courts right now before the state Supreme Court. Since that proposal was put in place, that regulation was enacted in Pennsylvania and then immediately tied up in the courts, we have not built a single natural gas generation power plant. Now you may say, okay, is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. Well, let me give you some context. 22 other states are building natural gas generation plants right now. Ohio is soon to open their 4th plant that they've built since the RGGI regulation in 2019. Pennsylvania is missing out. And as long as things like RGGI and PACER and PRESS are lingering and business people think that there might be a chance that they will be implemented, you will not see investment in Pennsylvania. You will not see the capital investment that is required for a major generation plant to get built. All the construction work, all the people that those plants employ, it will just go away. It will stay away, I should say. It's already gone. It will stay away from Pennsylvania, which means people are going to have to move to find work. And that's a really important metric that I'm watching and that I want you all to kind of keep in the back of your minds, because that's a sign that we're winning. When the builders come back, we're doing something right. And it's, we were such a leader in this space for a long time. So again, policy matters. These things matter so much. You may never heard of them before. They may not be making, news headlines, but they really do impact your day-to-day life. So I hope you'll take advantage of all the call to actions that Erik laid out for us, because it really does matter, and it only takes a handful of people speaking out and saying, hey, these taxes are a bad idea. And you can really sway a lawmaker and help us energize the legislature to go on the offensive and make sure that none of these plants come to Pennsylvania.
Excellent, Liz, excellent. Erik, if you had the opportunity to pick the highest impact thing that people could do as they leave this session today, this workshop, or when they leave, what would you pick?
I'm going to give 2 because one is a cop-out. It's go to stopshapirotaxes.com and sign up, because truly, if you do, we will continue to send you updates and we will continue to tell you, because it's an evolving environment. We're headed into the state budget fight. There are negotiations happening behind the scenes. The landscape will shift. So the most impactful thing you can do might change over time. Getting connected with us and being a part of, again, that army of advocates, 30,000 strong right now. We need to double that, triple it. Make sure we have the groundswell of support across the state to apply pressure to lawmakers to stop Shapiro's budget proposal. So I would say if you do just one thing, it is that. But in general, whether you do it through us or by picking up the phone yourself, contacting, we have tools that can put you in touch with your lawmakers. So if you go to stopshapirotaxes.com, we can give you those action alerts to know when to contact your lawmakers, what message, what bills to reference, or what policy measures. But however you do it, contact your elected officials. They do not hear from enough people. If a dozen people call them, that can be a big thing. And they need to know that for those of them who are champions and stand with us, they need to know that you have their backs in this budget fight. And for those that aren't, they need to know that Josh Shapiro's budget is politically toxic, and it's going to force a $2,000 tax hike on working families. You also may feel dispirited because we talked about how he's going to the courts and trying to unilaterally raise energy with a 30% energy tax. State Supreme Court justices are elected. Several of them are up for election this year. As Andre mentioned, oral arguments are happening in May. They're political creatures, and they respond to the dynamic as well. So again, I think contact your lawmakers however you do it. If you can do that through joining with us at stopshapirotaxes.com, we can be a resource to keep you informed, keep you engaged, and help you bring other people to the fight.
Excellent. Andre, I saw a couple times it looked like you had some thoughts you wanted to throw in. We have some time, so you can do that.
I always have thoughts. I'm happy to share thoughts. No, I mean, I think, look, Liz said before, if you follow, Governor Shapiro's social media, it's quite entertaining. He'll put out a post and he'll say, we're doing all the wrong things. We're behind all these other states. This is horrible. And then literally 30 seconds later, probably because a comm staffer just timed the tweet incorrectly, literally you can have, so they're side by side. Then he says, we're an energy powerhouse. We're an energy leader. We're top of the market. Well, which one is it? Well, the real Josh Shapiro, please step forward. But he says, he'll say something like, we are the number one energy producer, or the number two producer of energy, but he won't say the energy source. That's very telling. He's never once said natural gas. Why? Because he knows he has to. All of this is about delivering to a progressive base and a green energy donor base that does not want the most affordable, most reliable, and most secure energy source. They want all of the subsidies. They want all of the movements and regulations that are going to prop up these part-time energy sources like wind and solar. And look, we at the Commonwealth Foundation, we don't believe in picking winners and losers. I'm not sitting here saying we should outright ban wind and solar. What we are proposing is say, have a standard, right? There's a grid reliability standard. The grid operates in the real world. Trust the science on this. There are certain things that keep the grid humming and working and keep it affordable, and there are certain things that don't. So what the role of government here should be is say, look, here's a reliability of standard. Anything you do add on to the grid cannot jeopardize reliability. It has to maintain it or improve it, period, full stop. And then all the energy sources can compete. Who is going to be able to do that? I promise you, the one that is going to provide power close to 100% of the time, something like natural gas, nuclear, or coal, by the way, is going to outwin on that reliability standard than something that only produces reliable power less than 25% of the time, because it has to deal with the externalities of the wind and the sun. And by the way, this is important, people will say to you, well, wind and solar is some of the most affordable energy out there. You'll hear this? That is a lie. And why is that a lie? It's done through smoke and mirrors. One, they are heavily subsidized, so that changes the cost. That's not the real cost. The subsidies are changing the cost, which makes them look more affordable. If you got rid of the subsidies, I promise you, people would not be picking wind and solar because, again, it's not reliable and it's going to be more expensive. Why else is it more expensive, even with those subsidies? Well, because they only work 25% of the time or less, you have to overbuild them, right? So if you want to have a 40 megawatt solar farm, you have to overbuild on that to try to get it. You have to build battery storage. So that's an additional cost. You have to build battery storage, which, by the way, at utility scale, lasts maybe 4 to 6 hours. So that's an additional cost. So when the sun isn't shining on the solar panels, they're now not working. When the battery rain, goes dry, that's not working. So what do you have to do? You have to boost up the natural gas turbines. You have to boost up the coal turbines. You can't really rev up a nuclear plant. It's really good to keep that base load generation going and humming. It's really good for that. But now you have to peak up all of everything else. So you have to build reliable generation. You have to build more natural gas. You have to build more coal to offset when the wind and solar isn't working. These are all costs that add up, but it's an arbitrary cost. Why build the unreliable thing when you can just build the reliable thing that is going to work? So again, this is not just a problem for Pennsylvania. This is a problem across the country. And Josh Shapiro is buying into this narrative that it's renewable energy at all cost. They think it's this Band-Aid solution for climate change when and again, they want to do it to reduce emissions. We are reducing emissions with natural gas. And actually, by the way, that is true across the country. You can Google it right now. The number one driver for reducing emissions in the United States is not wind, it's not solar, it's natural gas. That's inconvenient for the eco-fundamentalists. It's inconvenient for the green energy donors that want to force you to have these energy sources. But again, we operate on a full-time economy. You can't run a full-time economy on part-time energy sources. This is a recipe for disaster. And again, it makes absolutely no sense. It is a solution in search of a problem. And Josh Shapiro can claim to be working across the aisle and be moderate all he wants, but he's adopting California-style and Europe-style energy policies and trying to cut our energy leadership, not just in half, but drive it into the ground.
Can I mention one more thing that's playing into this debate and discussion, something you might have seen in the news? We are using more electricity than ever before, and the projections for how much more we're going to be adding to the grid, the load we're going to be adding to the grid, is escalating. Excuse me. Data centers, is kind of the main thing that people talk about. The PUC is having a hearing on this at the end of April. That's going to make all of these problems worse. Okay, so we're operating in a scenario where we're decreasing the amount of reliable energy at the same time that we're increasing our consumption. So it doesn't work. It doesn't add up. So we're actually doing, you could say exactly the opposite of what we need to do. And so it's great that 3 Mile Island, or what is it called now, Crane Clean Energy, thank you, is being revived to meet a new demand. But I don't want us to get into a situation where the AI-powered companies, the tech companies, they have the reliable power they need, but you and I don't. And we could very well find ourselves in a situation like that if we're not establishing good market-based policies right now that will stand the test of time, regardless of what new technology emerges, because we don't know what's going to happen. No one saw shale gas coming, 40 years ago. I'm sure there will be new innovations, and that's a beautiful thing, and that's an American thing. So the policies that we're talking about are based in fundamental principles that will not change regardless of new innovation that will occur, and I expect it. Pennsylvania is known for our grit and our innovation, so I have very high hopes for the future. But the policies we're talking about, the RGGI, the PACER, the PRESS, that closes the door on innovation. It locks in today's existing technologies. So it's really, in my mind, kind of a pessimistic way of looking at the world in the future. So again, I just want to note that the stakes are getting even higher when you look at consumption and the direction that our economy is moving.
Thank you, Liz. And Erik, I was going to ask you to weigh in on that. And also, can you talk a little bit about the way we do our polling?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And this is kind of related to the polling. One, we do both polling and focus groups. And one thing that was really heartbreaking in some recent focus groups was to listen to people who can't afford the rising cost of energy, and that's even before Shapiro's additional 30% tax hike would go into effect. And you talk to people who, in the winter, don't turn the heat up and are wearing a coat in the house. They're struggling to put food on the table. There is a cost of living crisis. They're struggling to pay their utility bills. They're struggling to pay their taxes. Josh Shapiro is not personally paying the utility bill at the governor's mansion. You're paying for it. So again, if you want to be properly motivated, think of him sitting in his electric-powered massage couch, his dog coming in through the electric dog door, and him using his $900 blender, while other people are wearing coats because they can't afford to have the heat on in the winter. That is heartbreaking. There is a real personal impact, and it's important to remember that when you leave today. But I do want to highlight our polling and our messaging resource. You can go to commongroundpoll.com. We do a tracking poll that looks at the attitudes, interests, and sentiment of Pennsylvania voters throughout the year on these issues, and it shows overwhelming support against Shapiro's energy tax, against the tax hikes that would be forced by his budget. People want to see reforms like the Taxpayer Protection Act. More than 90% of Pennsylvanians want to see the Taxpayer Protection Act enacted because it's not just a cost of living crisis, it is a government spending crisis. We cannot afford to continue spending at the levels Josh Shapiro wants to, especially as people and businesses leave this state. So you can check out our polling. It is a great resource, and it's a powerful talking point to help show other people where the public sentiment actually is. The unfortunate thing, again, is that just enough people aren't involved. People may oppose these things when they hear about it, and it's easy to respond to a poll. It takes a lot more effort to pick up the phone or log onto your computer and contact a lawmaker. So again, my concluding ask of you here is to not just leave upset, but to leave engaged and to please get involved.
And just to echo that, we at Commonwealth Foundation are extremely grateful for everyone who took time out this morning to attend this pretty deep dive into Pennsylvania energy and why it matters so much. And it really, panelists, you did a great job in elucidating that. We have like a minute left. We could do like a lightning round, if there's one thing you could change about the current structure of Pennsylvania regulatory structure around energy, what would you change? Andre?
Yeah, the number one thing, we have to get rid of the alternative energy portfolio standard. The APS has got to go. It's got to start there, and then we can fight the new things that are coming on the scene. But yeah, the APS has got to go.
Excellent. Liz?
All right, so Andre stole mine. I have to think of one on the fly. I think it would be giving lawmakers the ability to veto any regulation that the agency's promulgated. Right now, they don't have that ability. That's a major oversight. We need to fix that. And we actually have a constitutional amendment bill that would do that.
And Liz stole mine, so, so I'm going to pivot to another one. But that is that hold Josh Shapiro accountable to, even absent what Liz mentioned, work with the legislature as he promised. He's out there every day claiming that he's launched all of these programs that have fixed the broken permitting process and reformed regulations. And it's all smoke and mirrors, it's all PR, it's no real world impact. Meaningful reform has to be done through the legislature. Josh Shapiro needs to do what he promised and actually show up to his job here in Pennsylvania and work with Republicans and Democrats in the legislature to pass policies that have overwhelming support from the public.
All right, our time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.